Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary Kelly, for being here today. And I'd like to once again thank you for your trip to Detroit. I think it was well received by the community, and I appreciate you taking the effort to come out to my state. Secretary Kelly, I'm particularly concerned about some of the proposed cuts to several FEMA preparedness grant programs that are in the President's budget. Our first responders in Michigan use the Urban Area Security Initiative and State Homeland Security Program funding to support life-saving efforts, including bomb search and rescue equipment, simulation drills, maintenance of local early warning, and emergency response centers. The proposed 25% cost share matching requirement for local governments would prevent a number of these efforts because, quite frankly, many of these departments simply don't have the money available for that cost share. And I know you think it's important that there's skin in the game. You've used that term frequently, that our local communities have some cash as they are in these matching programs. But given the fact that we're facing lone wolf attacks and a lot of changes in how our domestic homeland security folks have to deal with situations, do you believe how are they able to make the appropriate investments to make sure that they're equipped for these types of attacks? Are there some other alternatives, or are there ways that we could perhaps adjust that figure in the budget?
Yes, Senator. Referencing a couple of my previous comments in this hearing as well as in the past, our local law enforcement, city, state, counties, big city, small city, they're in a different place today than they were right after 9/11, and we all know that. They're just much better at what they do. Their head is in the game. They have skin in the game. The grants over the years have, to a degree, caused that to happen because we've given additional funding to the various municipalities to improve themselves. We're at the point now where much of that effort is already accomplished, and we're in the sustainment phase. That is to say, states and local governments now need to sustain what we've helped them, the points at which, and the equipment and all that we've helped them get to. That combined with there aren't unlimited resources. One of the things you mentioned, lone wolf attacks. A lone wolf, and you know this, sir, and I beg your forgiveness. Don't mean to lecture, not lecture, but to go too low in terms of my response. But the thing we're facing now with the lone wolf attacks is a different dynamic. It is absolutely, New York City is at risk, Detroit's at risk, yet some tiny little town in the middle of Arkansas is at risk. Every small town, big town is at risk from this lone wolf stuff. I don't know, as hard as I've thought about it, if there's a way to prevent it, predict it, get our arms around it, other than, local cops and sheriffs getting into people's business and legally, outreach and all of that kind of thing. But my point is, an unlimited amount of money parceled out to every big city, small municipality in America might prevent a lone wolf attack. I don't know if it will, but might. But of course, we don't have an unlimited amount of money. We make these decisions in many ways based on formulas that we receive from the Congress. We plug in numbers and try to somehow evaluate what might be a logical target, not necessarily for the lone wolfers, they're everywhere, but a logical target or a target that might be at higher risk, say New York City, than another municipality, particularly from an external terrorist.
Well, I understand that, and I appreciate the fact that this is a big challenge, and we don't have unlimited amounts of money, but I want to just challenge a little bit of the assessment that the communities are adequately prepared for it. Certainly, we've come a long way, as you mentioned. We've come a long way and provided those resources, but I'm certainly hearing from my departments in Michigan, there's still unmet needs that they think are pretty critical, and the resources are tight for them as well. And we still have a ways to go. So hopefully we can revisit some of those matching programs to make sure that those communities that may be at the highest risk, but also have a fairly challenging budget situation in that community, that we're able to work something out. I'd appreciate having further discussion in that area. Also, Mr. Secretary, the first travel ban executive order required the Secretary of Homeland Security to submit a report in 30 days that provides a list of countries that do not provide adequate information for vetting within 30 days of the date of this order. And it's my understanding the District Court in Seattle did not stay that aspect of the order. The second executive order required the exact same report within 20 days of its effective date. And as you know, aside from Sections 2 and 6, the remainder of the revised executive order is not affected by any subsequent injunctions. So that means as of today, May 6, 2017, the report required by the first executive order is overdue by over 60 days, more than twice as much time as required, and report required by the second executive order is overdue by about 30 days. Mr. Secretary, did you begin the report reviewing screening procedures that the initial executive order required?
Senator, we've been very, very, very cautious, extra cautious in getting anywhere near where the court might consider we're not following their instructions. I would have to get back to you on exactly where we are on the reports. One of the things that, regardless of whether the court has told us not to do, we've looked for things that we could do. As an example, thinking about other countries, but not studying it, and looking at vetting procedures, additional vetting, extreme vetting, but not studying it. Some of the procedures would be very obvious. Some of the countries very obvious. But if you don't mind, I'd like to get back to you on the question.
Well, I appreciate it, because it seems to me a court injunction is not going to limit you from doing your own internal reviews of policies and procedures. That goes
I actually have
beyond.
lawyers telling me, sir, that we are too close on some of these issues, not necessarily the ones you've addressed, but on some of these issues, and it's best just to show extra good faith and not getting too close to it.
Very good. Well, I'd appreciate further discussions on that as well.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Yes, sir.